Here, and I'm super glad to be with you today. So give me a little thumbs up or a little heart if you're here watching, because I'd love to know if you're here. So what I'm going to talk to you guys about today is ownership. So we're just going to have a little dialogue on ownership in our classroom and what that looks like, right? And for everybody, it's going to be a little bit different. And I think that I was sort of inspired to take on this topic based on like a lot of things that we see in the world and how our actions can directly impact other people. So ownership. Ownership is the topic today. Let's go ahead and get started. So what does it mean? This is for my teacher friends, but what does it mean taking ownership in general? What does it mean for teachers when we take ownership? What does it mean for students to take ownership? Well, for me, when I personally think of taking ownership over what happens in my classroom, I'm more so related to classroom management because I know that most issues related to classroom management and the conduct of my students is within my power to impact, okay, or to have an effect on. And so the question, a lot of people have is it really so that I can control the behavior of my students? Well, for me, no, right? No, and to be honest with you, I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to control the behavior of my students. I want them to have the ability to choose and to make decisions and to have autonomy. But what I am saying is that I, as the teacher, I can have a powerful effect on them by my words, my tone of voice, my body language, my use of eye contact, right? All of those things can have a powerful effect on the behavior of our students, and we can influence things for the good or for the bad, right? And so, in other words, as a teacher, I feel that we have to be hyper self-aware because as the teacher, I'm ultimately responsible for the messages that I convey verbally, those messages that I'm speaking, right? I'm responsible for that. And I'm also, and I think a lot of people don't think about this, but we're also responsible for the messages that the students receive from us non-verbally, right? For example, if I'm giving, really important instructions on something, but yet I'm being super informal in my register, and I might be slouching, or I might be leaning against my desk, and I might be drinking coffee casually. Well, I don't drink coffee, I drink tea. But if I'm walking around the room and I'm not modulating my tone of voice to match what I'm saying, and I haven't gotten all the students' attention, the students are receiving two totally different messages, right? And which one do you think they're going to believe? Are they going to believe my words and what I'm saying and what I'm telling them to do? Or are they going to believe my actions, right? And for me, that's ownership in the micro, in my small little classroom, in my little world, right? And so ownership for me is also knowing that I am going to have a tremendous impact on my students each and every day. Every word counts, every action counts, everything counts, and that's why it's so exhausting, right? And so I'll give you an example. If, for example, a student is having a bad day, I can have a tremendous impact on my relationship with that student and how all of that situation plays out, not just for that day, but for the rest of the year, based on the compassion and the empathy that I choose to show in the moment, right? And if I immediately assume the worst, which can happen at times because sometimes we can be impatient, we ourselves might be having a bad day, right? But if I immediately assume the worst and I get impatient and I publicly correct the student and then I send him or her to the office, the question I really have to ask myself is, what impact is that going to have on my relationship, not just with the student, him or herself, but with the other students who are observing my actions, right? And so, of course, obviously, we all know this, there's a time and a place and a way to correct someone publicly without damaging the relationship, but it's all in the finesse of the way you handle it, right? And so another example is, what if I'm giving directions and there's a component to my directions that was unclear to a student or to several students? And instead of doing what I envisioned in my head, the students do something different, and then I feel the need to chastise the student for, quote unquote, not listening to instructions, right? I've seen that personally. The reason why I bring that up is because I've seen that situation play out so many times in so many different classrooms over the years. And these massive problems that they turn into all stemmed from one tiny misunderstanding on the students' part and one tiny assumption on the teacher's part, right? And that type of situation usually results in a complete breakdown of the relationship between the student and the teacher, and also it has, results in a referral to the office for incompliance or disrespect or whatever, right? And that type of situation is going to completely erode the trust of the student, towards us. And I think that we have to take ownership of that as teachers, right? Okay. So now, of course, there are times that a student is in a particularly rare form, right? Maybe they didn't get any sleep that night because their parents were up all night fighting, or maybe they're exhausted from having to take care of their siblings, or they're working late and they have tons of homework and they can't catch up. Maybe they got sick and, they've got days of homework, which is going to equate to hours and hours of work at home that they have to do, and they're overwhelmed, okay? And also, right, it's not that far off for us to say that it's pretty undeniable that the things that kids are seeing and witnessing nowadays, both fiction and nonfiction, are horrifying. And so we should, as teachers, come to expect that there are going to be days, and possibly even more frequently than there used to be, but there are going to be days where kids are totally out of line and they act out of character. That is going to happen. It's only a natural result as a result of all the things that they're seeing and experiencing, right? Okay, and plus, there's really their leadership, right, is not as strong as it used to be, just in general, in our society in general. And so there's no boundaries anymore for people. Everybody can kind of do what they want, and I'm certainly not an advocate of that. So we should, as teachers, probably prepare ourselves for people to act out of line and out of character at times, right? And so what it all boils down to for us is, we have to carefully make an examination of the students' frame of mind through a series of corrections and interactions, right? And at that point, right, once we've done all these things, there will come a point, a very clear point in time, when a student simply is not going to comply with what we've asked them to do, okay? And so at that point, we don't have a choice as a teacher. It is defiance, and the situation must go to a higher authority, right? Because at this point, it's out of our range of control, okay? And hopefully, when it does go to that authority figure, that person takes just as much ownership, right? We're talking about our sense of ownership, but hopefully that authority figure takes just as much ownership in the culture of the school as the teacher does in his or her classroom, right? But no matter what, though, the student ultimately needs to be sent a clear message from all sides that we're there to support them, right, first and foremost, and that we will do whatever it takes for as long as it takes, right, to help them reach their goals, okay, and to correct themselves. And they also students need to know that we empathize with them. Now, let me clarify, this does not mean that we take their side and allow them to feel like a victim, and then we coddle them and all those kinds of things, and we give them candy and a teddy bear and we send them back to class. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that when we empathize with them, we're saying, we hear you. We are listening to you. We are going to hold you accountable for your actions, but we're also going to provide you with insight into the situation, and we're also going to ask, right, strategic questions that help the students arrive to the right conclusions. And at that point, we are also going to motivate them to do better, right? And so I'll end it with this little live stream today. I was listening to a podcast this morning with Curtis Martin. He's a football player. I'm not super knowledgeable about football, but Curtis Martin, football player. And he said something that I absolutely loved, and it wasn't in the context of education, but I thought it was really applicable. And he said that problems arise in your life either to direct you, correct you, inspect you, protect you, or perfect you. And I thought that was really interesting because when you think about it, if a problem arises, and it's going to arise and it's going to do one of these 5 things. It's going to direct you in the direction in which you should go, okay? Or it's going to correct you. It's going to make you make an assessment and say, okay, well, this isn't the right thing to do. I need to correct this and make amends, maybe apologize or whatever, okay? A problem might also help you to inspect yourself, right? Because there might be a flaw there. There might be a character flaw there that you need to address, right? A problem might also arise to protect you. So a small problem might arise, and if you fix it then and there, then it won't grow into a bigger problem later in life, and that is a protection for us, right? And then, or a problem might arise and it might help you to perfect you, might help you to perfect your craft. And I can really relate to that personally because, problems have arisen before. And I feel that all of those problems really did all of those things, but it definitely helped me to perfect what I do on a daily basis. And for that, I'm grateful. So anyway, I just wanted to talk with you about that today. And I hope that was helpful. So I will talk to you guys on another live stream, and I'll see you later. Bye.